Hey, welcome. Today we're diving into a pretty wild new idea. It suggests that our current economic tools, well, they're like using a paper map from the 70s to navigate a Tesla. It's just not going to work. The new idea is called Megaseconomics, and it's all about trading in those old, dusty maps for a live, real-time dashboard of the entire global economy. Now, really think about that for a second. What if we could actually see a financial crisis coming before it happens? I'm not talking about just getting a report that says, oops, we're in a recession now. I mean a system that flashes a huge warning sign months or maybe even years before the storm hits. That's the incredible promise we're going to unpack today.
Okay, so to really get why we might need a whole new approach, we've got to start with our current blind spots. Why is it that with all the data, all the experts we have, these massive economic shocks still feel like they just pop up out of nowhere?
Well, if you look back, our big economic ideas have almost always been a reaction to some kind of disaster. The Great Depression, that gave us Keynesian economics. The crazy stagflation of the 70s, that's where monetarism came from. And the 2008 financial crisis, oh boy, that showed us that even our most advanced models had huge, gaping blind spots. It's like we're always building the perfect weapon to fight the last war. And here's the real kicker, the big problem. Traditional macroeconomics tends to look at things like inflation, unemployment, or GDP in their own little silos. But that's just not how the world works, right? In reality, everything is connected. It's a giant web. And when you're only looking at tiny fragments of that web, you're completely missing the big picture and, more importantly, the really big risks. So, okay, if the old way of looking at things in pieces isn't cutting it anymore, what's the alternative? Well, that brings us to the main event, Megaeconomics. This is a brand new way of thinking designed from the ground up for the super connected, fast-paced world we actually live in. So what is Megaseconomics at its core? It's all about one thing, seeing everything at once. Instead of trying to solve problems one by one, it looks at a whole bunch of interconnected issues all at the same time. And get this, it throws out the old static equations and replaces them with live simulators and visual models that actually bring the economy to life right in front of your eyes. And this slide really just nails the difference, doesn't it? We're talking about a fundamental shift in perspective. We're moving away from that fragmented, static, equation-based view to something that's holistic, dynamic, and totally visual. Honestly, it's like switching from an old black and white photograph to a live, full-color 3D movie of the economy. All right, so this all sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work? Let's dive into one of the coolest and most powerful ideas in megaeconomics. This concept of visualizing an entire nation's economy on a single moving surface. Okay, I want you to just picture this for a moment. Forget about having a dozen different charts and graphs on your screen. Instead, you have just one space. And in that space, you're plotting the real-time data for every key indicator you can think of. GDP, inflation, unemployment, trade, you name it. And each one gets its own axis.
Now, this is where the magic happens. You take all those live data points, one from each axis, and you digitally link them all together. And just like that, poof, you don't have a bunch of separate data points anymore. You have a single, unified surface. That surface is the economy. And because the data is pouring in live, you can literally watch it move. You can see it ripple and twist and change its shape in real time.
And this is the really cool part. The surface actually changes color depending on how the economy is doing overall. If everything's humming along nicely, it's green. That means stability. If it starts to dip, it turns yellow. That's your recession alert. If it falls into dangerous territory, it turns bright red. Crisis. And if it just flatlines, it goes black for stagnation. It's basically an instant, super intuitive EKG for an entire country's economy. Okay, but this whole visual all-at-once approach doesn't just stop with a country's internal economy. It can also totally change the way we look at something as huge and complicated as global trade. So instead of staring at rows and rows of numbers on a spreadsheet, this model called trade mass does something much smarter. It represents a country's trade growth as a sphere. And the logic is just so simple and elegant. The faster a country's trade is growing, the bigger the sphere gets. That's it. Then, what you do is you track this over time. You link these spheres together, one for each year, and you create what's called a trade accumulation structure. It ends up looking kind of like a string of pearls, and it gives you a visual history of a country's trade performance in a single glance. You can immediately see the boom years with huge spheres and the bad years with tiny ones. It's all right there. So, okay, we've got these incredible visual tools, right? We have a moving, color-changing surface for the economy and these strings of spheres for trade. But what's the point of it all? Let's bring this all back home and talk about why any of this actually matters in the real world. Look, at the end of the day, this is about way more than just making cool-looking graphics. By giving us this holistic, real-time picture, Megaseconomics is trying to build an early warning system for economic disasters. The whole goal is to help the people in charge make smarter, faster decisions, so that hopefully we can lessen the blow of the next big financial crisis, or maybe even avoid it altogether. And that really leaves us with a huge, powerful question, doesn't it? Because having this kind of crystal clear vision is one thing, but figuring out what to do with that knowledge, that's a whole different ballgame. If we could really, truly see the entire economic system moving at once, what would we choose to do differently? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this one.